On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein made a decision that shocked his doctors. He refused the surgery that could have saved his life. When his physician pleaded with him to operate, Einstein calmly replied, quote, "I want to go when I want. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It's time to go. I will do it elegantly." End quote. That night, and the greatest mind in human history spoke his final words, but no one understood them. His night nurse. She didn't speak German. Those words, whatever they were, are lost forever. But what Einstein wrote about death in the months before, what he believed happens to your energy when your body dies, and we know exactly, and it changes everything. Most people think Einstein was only a physicist, a man who studied atoms, equations, and the speed of light. But Einstein spent the final years of his life obsessed with one question: what happens when we die? Not as a religious question, but as a scientific one. Because Einstein understood something most people never even consider: energy cannot be destroyed. This isn't philosophy. This is pure physics, the first law of thermodynamics. One of the most fundamental laws in the universe. Energy can change form, but it can never disappear. And Einstein knew exactly what that meant for the human soul. Let me take you back to March 1955. Just weeks before his death, Einstein received news that his closest friend had died, Michel Besso, a fellow physicist, a man Einstein had known for over 50 years. They met as young men in Switzerland, studied together, debated together, dreamed together. Besso was there when Einstein developed the theory of relativity. In fact, Einstein credited Besso, in his original 1905 paper, the only person he thanked. And now, Besso was gone. Einstein sat down to write a letter to Besso's family. What he wrote would become one of the most profound statements about death ever penned by a scientist. In that letter, Einstein wrote, quote, "Now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That means nothing. People like us who believe in physics know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." End quote. Read that again. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. This was not poetry. This was physics. Einstein was describing what his own equations proved. That time, as we experience it, is not real. That past and future exist simultaneously. That death is not an ending, but a transition. Most people misunderstand what Einstein meant. They think he was offering comfort, a nice metaphor for grief. But Einstein never dealt in metaphors. He was describing reality, as his mathematics revealed it. In Einstein's universe, the block universe, as physicists call it, every moment that has ever existed still exists. Every moment that will ever exist already exists. We experience time as flowing, as moving from past to future. But that experience is an illusion, created by our consciousness. In reality, all moments are equally real. The moment of your birth, the moment you are watching this video, the moment of your death, all exist together, eternally. What does this mean? For where you go when you die, Einstein was very clear, but you do not go anywhere, because you never left your energy, your consciousness, your existence. It simply continues, in a form you cannot perceive, from your current vantage point. In 1950, Einstein wrote another letter. That reveals his thinking. A father had written to him. Devastated by the death of his young son, he asked Einstein, the smartest man alive, "What happens after death?" Einstein replied, quote, "A human being is a part of the whole called by us universe. a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion, a trick of the mind, end quote, a trick of the mind, Einstein was saying, that our sense of being separate, of being individual beings who are born and die, is an illusion. In reality, we are part of something much larger, something that does not begin or end. Let me explain this. In simpler terms, think about a wave. In the ocean, the wave rises. It has a shape, an identity, a beginning, and an end. From the wave's perspective, it is born when it rises, and it dies when it crashes on the shore. But is the wave really separate from the ocean? Was the water ever not there? Will the water cease to exist when the wave ends? Of course not. The wave was always the ocean, experiencing itself as a wave. Einstein believed the same is true for human beings. We are the universe, experiencing itself as individuals. When the wave crashes, the water remains. When the body dies, the energy remains. This is where Einstein's most famous equation becomes relevant. E equals mc squared, or m2, energy equals mass, times the speed of light, squared. Most people know this equation. Few understand what it really means. It means that matter and energy are the same thing. Your body, every atom of it, is frozen energy. The chair you sit on, the screen you are watching, your own hand, all of it is energy in solid form, and energy, by the fundamental laws of physics, cannot be destroyed. When Einstein refused surgery in 1955, he understood this deeply. He knew his body would cease to function, but he also knew that the energy comprising his body, the energy that had generated his thoughts, his discoveries, his love for music and sailing, that energy would not disappear. It would transform, just as it had been transforming for billions of years, from stars to planets, from planets to life, from life to consciousness, and onward, into forms we cannot yet imagine. There is something most biographies do not mention. When Einstein died, 9 pages of handwritten equations were found by his bedside. He had been working until his final hours, not on physics, as we normally understand it, but on his unified field theory, the equation that would unite all forces in the universe. Einstein believed that if he could find this equation, he would understand the fundamental nature of existence, including what happens when we die. He never finished it, but he died still searching, still believing that the answer was there, waiting to be discovered. Some people ask, did Albert Einstein believe in an afterlife? The answer is complicated. He did not believe in the traditional afterlife. Heaven and hell, as angels and judgment, he called such ideas, quote, pretty childish, end quote. But he absolutely believed in continuation, not of the individual personality, not of memories and ego, but of the energy that comprises us, the fundamental stuff of existence that takes form as human beings for a brief moment, then takes other forms, forever. In 1930, Albert Einstein gave an interview that reveals his thinking. He was asked, "What happens to us when we die?" Albert Einstein replied, quote, "There are 2 ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. I believe in the latter." End quote. He went on to explain, the miracle is not that we continue after death. The miracle is that we exist at all. that the universe somehow organized itself into conscious beings who can ask questions about their own existence. Death, in this view, is not an ending. It's simply a return to the miraculous whole, from which we briefly emerged. Albert Einstein had a name for this view. He called it the cosmic religious feeling, not religion in the traditional sense. No gods, no prayers, no commandments, but a profound sense of connection to everything that exists, a recognition that we are not separate from the universe. We are the universe. Let me share something that will change how you think about your own mortality. Albert Einstein understood that the atoms in your body right now have been part of countless other forms throughout cosmic history. The carbon in your cells was forged in the heart of a dying star. The iron in your blood came from a supernova explosion billions of years ago. The water in your body has cycled through oceans and clouds and living creatures for eons. You are not a new creation. You are ancient, as old as the universe itself. And when your body returns to the earth, those atoms will continue, becoming part of trees and rivers and future generations. The cycle never ends, because it cannot end. The laws of physics do not allow it. Albert Einstein once said, quote, "I believe that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Therefore, when we die, our energy returns to the universe to be recycled into something else." End quote. Recycled into something else, not destroyed, not annihilated, not sent to oblivion, transformed, just as the caterpillar transforms into the butterfly, just as the seed transforms into the tree, just as the star transforms into the elements that make life possible. Death is transformation, not termination. There is a question that haunted Albert Einstein throughout his life. Why does the universe exist at all? He could explain how the universe works, the equations, the forces, the relationships between mass and energy and space and time. But he could never explain why. Why is there something rather than nothing and connected to this? Why are we here? Albert Einstein believed these questions were deeply related to the question of death. Because if we understood why the universe exists, we would understand why we exist. And if we understood why we exist, we would understand what happens when we stop existing. In his final years, Albert Einstein became increasingly interested in consciousness, not as a philosophical abstraction, but as a scientific problem. What is consciousness? Where does it come from? Where does it go? He corresponded with neurologists, psychologists, even mystics, searching for clues. He never found a definitive answer, but he came to believe something remarkable. Consciousness, like energy, cannot be destroyed. Because consciousness is energy, the most refined, most organized, most complex form of energy in the known universe. Think about what this means. Your awareness, the feeling of being you, the experience of watching this video right now. That is energy, organized in the most intricate pattern we have ever discovered. And energy cannot be destroyed. It can only transform. So what happens to your consciousness when your brain stops functioning? Albert Einstein believed it transforms. Into what? He did not know. But into something. Certainly. There is a passage in one of Albert Einstein's notebooks that most people have never seen. It was discovered after his death. Among his personal papers, he wrote, quote, "The distinction between life and death is not as clear as we believe. From the perspective of physics, both are states of organized energy. Death is simply a reorganization, not an ending. The fear of death is therefore the fear of change, nothing more." End quote. The fear of death is the fear of change. Albert Einstein understood this deeply. That is why he could refuse surgery so calmly. That is why he could write about Michel Besso's death with such equanimity. He did not fear what was coming, because he understood it was not an ending. Some people ask, but what about me? What about my personality, my memories, my sense of self? Albert Einstein was honest about this. The individual, as we experience ourselves, does not continue. The wave crashes on the shore, the wave is gone, but the water remains, your personality, your memories, your ego. These are patterns in energy, temporary configurations. They dissolve at death, but the energy that comprised them does not dissolve. It continues, taking new forms, creating new patterns. This might sound cold to some people. They want to continue as themselves forever. But Albert Einstein saw something beautiful in the alternative. He wrote, quote, "The true value of a human being is determined by the measure and sense in which he has attained liberation from the self." End quote. Liberation from the self. Albert Einstein believed that attachment to our individual identity causes suffering. The fear of death is really the fear of losing me. But if we understand that me is temporary, while the energy is eternal, death becomes less frightening, not an enemy to be defeated, but a transition to be accepted. In April 1955, Albert Einstein demonstrated this acceptance. His doctors implored him to have surgery on his aortic aneurysm, the same condition that had nearly taken his life in 1948. With surgery, he might live longer. Without it, he would certainly die. Albert Einstein chose to die, not because he wanted to die, but because he understood that artificially prolonging the body served no purpose. The wave would crash eventually, whether in days or years. What mattered wasn't how long the wave lasted, but what it did while it rose. Albert Einstein spent his final days at Princeton Hospital. He continued working on his equations, driven to the end. He received visitors, spoke with colleagues. He was not afraid. His son, Hank Einstein, visited him on April 15th. Albert Einstein spoke to him calmly about physics, about family, about the future. He showed no fear of what was coming, because he knew, scientifically, mathematically, that energy does not end. On the night of April 17th, Albert Einstein felt weak. He knew the end was near. He could feel it in his bones. He spoke his final words in German. His night nurse, Alberta Rosel, heard him speak. But she did not understand German. She described the words as, quote, "mumbled, peaceful, not distressed," end quote. Whatever Albert Einstein said in that final moment, he took it with him or rather, it transformed with him into whatever comes next. The next morning, at 1:15 a.m. on April 18th, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away. His body was cremated, his ashes scattered in a secret location. He wanted no grave, no monument, no shrine, because he understood that the body was not important. The energy, the consciousness, the contribution to human knowledge, that was what mattered, and that could never be destroyed. What can we learn from how Albert Einstein faced death? First, that death is not an ending. The laws of physics guarantee that your energy continues. In what form? We do not know, but continuing, certainly. Second, that fear of death is fear of change, and change is inevitable, constant, the very nature of existence itself. Resisting change causes suffering. Accepting it brings peace. Third, that we are not separate from the universe. We are the universe, experiencing itself through temporary forms. When the form ends, the universe continues, and so, in a real sense, do we. You just learned what Albert Einstein believed happens when you die. Not religious speculation, but scientific understanding. Based on the laws of physics he spent his life discovering. This is knowledge that changes how you see your own mortality. When you click super thanks, that you support bringing this hidden wisdom to light. Every contribution helps reveal what they never taught you in school. There's something else you should know. Albert Einstein believed that understanding death could transform how we live. He wrote, quote, "Our death is not an end if we can live on in our children and the younger generation, for they are us. Our bodies are only wilted leaves on the tree of life." End quote. Our bodies are only wilted leaves on the tree of life. The tree continues, even as the leaves fall. New leaves grow, carrying the same life force, the same energy, transformed, continuing. You are a leaf on that tree. One day, you will fall, but the tree will remain, and you will have contributed to its growth. Albert Einstein also believed that how we live matters more than how long we live. He said, quote, "Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile." End quote. The energy we put into the world during our brief existence, the love we share, the knowledge we create, the kindness we offer, that energy continues, rippling outward through time and space, affecting lives we will never know, creating patterns that persist long after the wave has crashed. When Albert Einstein refused surgery, he had no regrets. He had lived fully, contributed immensely, loved deeply. He had done his share, as he put it, and he was ready to let his energy transform, to rejoin the cosmic whole from which he had briefly emerged. Some of Albert Einstein's colleagues reported that in his final days, he seemed almost eager, not for death itself, but for what might come after. A scientist to the end, he was curious. What would it feel like when consciousness transformed? What patterns would his energy take? What new forms would emerge from what he had been? These were not frightening questions to Albert Einstein. They were fascinating ones. There's a beautiful symmetry to consider. The atoms in Albert Einstein's body, scattered now across the Earth, are still here. They are in the soil, in the plants, in the air we breathe. Perhaps some of those atoms are in you right now, literally, physically, part of your body. Albert Einstein continues, in the most tangible way possible, not as a ghost, not as a spirit, but as the actual physical substance of reality. And his ideas continue too. The energy he put into understanding the universe lives on in every physicist who builds on his work, in every student who learns the theory of relativity, in every person who looks at the stars and wonders. Energy cannot be destroyed. And Albert Einstein's energy, intellectual and physical, continues to shape the world. In the next video, I will reveal why Albert Einstein believed your soul is older than your body, his theory about where consciousness comes from before birth, and what it means for your true age as a being in this universe. The answer will make you rethink everything you believe about yourself. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss it. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe your energy continues after death? Or do you think consciousness ends when the brain stops? Comment below. Energy continues or consciousness ends? And tell me, what do you think Albert Einstein said in his final words? I read every comment in the first 2 hours. Thank you for watching until the end. Albert Einstein faced death without fear. Because he understood the fundamental truth of physics, energy cannot be destroyed. You are energy. Therefore, in the deepest sense, you cannot be destroyed, only transformed, only changed, only returned to the infinite whole from which you came at. The wave crashes, but the ocean remains. The leaf falls, but the tree continues. Your body will end, but your energy, it will not. This isn't about blind faith. This is pure physics. And Albert Einstein understood this concept better than anyone who's ever walked the earth. So, until next time, really remember this. You are the universe, experiencing itself, and that experience, in one form or another, it never truly ends. The energy just continues forever. And so, do you. But hold on. there's something else that's really crucial to grasp. Einstein wasn't some lone wolf in this belief. Modern physics. It's backing up what he already knew in his gut. The conservation of energy, it's absolutely, unequivocally absolute. Not a single experiment has ever shown energy popping into existence from absolutely nothing or just vanishing into thin air. Every single calorie you burn, every thought that crosses your mind, every emotion you feel, it's all just energy, transforming, never truly disappearing. Quantum physicists today, they're diving deep into what happens to information at the moment of death. And what they're discovering, it's showing that Einstein was right all along. Nothing truly disappears. It simply changes form, transforms into something new. Back in 1954, there was this one moment that really shines a light on just how deeply Einstein held this belief. A young journalist, they straight up asked him, "Are you afraid of death?" Einstein just smiled and said, quote, "I have no fear of dying. I feel such a profound sense of connection, a solidarity with all living things that it doesn't even matter to me where the individual begins and where it ends." End quote. Such solidarity with all living things. Einstein, he experienced himself as being completely interconnected with everything around him, not in some woo-woo mystical kind of way, but in a purely physical sense. The same atoms, the same energy, the same fundamental stuff, flowing through absolutely everything that exists. This is what he desperately wanted us to really understand. Death isn't just, poof, you're gone, a departure. It's participating in something vastly larger, something more profound. That energy you call yourself? It's been part of this universe for literally billions of years, and it's gonna keep on rolling for billions more. Your physical body, it's temporary, a blink in cosmic time. But your energy, that's eternal. And that's honestly the most comforting truth that physics can possibly offer. Einstein actually spent his final moments in complete peace. He was knee-deep in equations, deeply contemplating the true nature of reality. He wasn't battling death, he was observing it, just like the relentless scientist he had always been. Curious about what transformation, what next chapter awaited him, ready to embrace whatever came next in the grand cosmic dance. When they found those 9 pages covered in equations by his bedside, they realized he had been consumed by working on the unified field theory, the one equation that would finally explain everything, including, perhaps, just where that energy goes when it changes form. He sadly never got to completely crack the code, but maybe, just maybe, in some way we can't quite fully grasp yet, he finally found the answer.